All right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I used to be a television reporter and an anchor right here in central New York. Joleene was my maiden name. I was on News 10 Now. Remember when Time Warner Cable was YNN, was News 10 Now? So that's the camp that I was a part of. Look at my hair. I get such a kick out of this. My beat was the courthouse. I covered a lot of criminal activity. And I don't know if you recognize anybody up here. This is Brad Vidvakwa, Bill Carey, Jody Kenny, and Tammy Palmer. Most of them are still at the station. Tammy Palmer is at Channel 9. This was the life I lived for 10 years. And the amazing thing is I didn't love it. And people would say to me, it's such a great job. You get to be on TV. You get to go out in the field and do these stories. What they didn't know and what they didn't see was my job was to find pain and capitalize on it. And that was a difficult thing to do. So if someone experienced a car accident and they lost their child, guess who was on the front line? And then I got dubbed this name in the newsroom, the pit bull. And at first I'm like, yeah, that's right, because I was willing to go where other people wouldn't, to go get the story and do what I needed to do, because that would give me the confidence that I needed. But what was happening is I was actually feeling the pain of other people. Some would say that I was an empath, and I don't know if anyone is familiar with that. Whether I am or not, I don't know. The bottom line is I didn't like causing pain and being the one that would catapult it. And I knew innately, since I was young, that there was something about us that we didn't know that had been buried. And what I have discovered actually fairly recently, and I'm 42 years old, so understand your life is a journey, was that it's all right here, and you get to make the choice every day. So this was at the state fair. There's Jody, myself, and Tammy, and we're all pointing to our own pictures. And I remember thinking, I hate this. I don't love this. I woke up when I lost someone I loved dearly. Has anyone experienced a profound death? Mine was my mom. And when she died, I experienced what is known as delayed mourning. So it didn't hit me until about 8 months later. And I actually ended up walking. That's my mom with my daughter, and she was probably 4 then. Dora the Explorer. You cannot go wrong with Dora. She died from COPD. She was a smoker. Ask me if I smoke cigarettes. Not anymore. I certainly did, up until the day she died. Her death shocked me into it, and we're going to talk about that and how the mind plays a role in that. But that woke me up, and I started walking around this field across from my home, looking above to the sky to a source I didn't even know existed, if it was there or not, saying, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Just give me a sign. And I'm very linear. Please put a piece of paper in front of me that says you're supposed to be doing this. The one thing I did know is I loved expressing. I loved writing. I loved talking. I mean, let's face it, give me a live shot, it's mine. I owned it. I loved that. Loved writing, all of these pieces. And so there were all these things that I realized that I loved to do, but I didn't know how to unfold them and unpack them and what to do with them. And the reason I didn't know is because I didn't trust and I didn't have faith. Now, everybody in here has a different level of faith. So don't get me wrong. You can own it. It's yours. It's your right. It's your desire. Some of us believe in God. We are Christian. We are not Christian. We believe in source. We believe in the universe. Whatever word I use, take it out and put yours in. I often I'll say God, I'll say the source, I'll say the universe, because it's an energy and we are one. And in my growth, I recognize we're a collective consciousness. It gives me chills to think that, because I was so selfish. This was about me. This is my gig, my life. I was more concerned about my hair, and I'll admit I did check my hair before I came in here, than the effect I had on other people. So that's when I woke up and I realized I needed to make a serious change. What I do now is I'm a client closing expert, a coach, and a speaker for women entrepreneurs. And in a nutshell, what I do is I teach people who own businesses how to step out of the fear, move into the bravery, and be the greatest, amazing, the most amazing creature they can be, to own their self-worth, to quote what they're worth, to stand in their truth. And that's the part where we all falter. There's truth within us that we won't share with ourselves or with other people, because it's easier to put the mask on. Anyone familiar with shadow work? Linda is, yeah, absolutely. We'll put a mask on, that's the front. You're looking at my mask right now. She's a pretty cool chick. I like that jacket. How about that bracelet? What's the story with that? The shadow is an insecure individual with an edge of anger. And if you know me, you've probably seen it. It doesn't mean I'm proud of it, but every single one of us has a shadow and has a mask. So I do teach them how to sell because of a stigma that exists around selling. We don't want to be too pushy. We don't want to be aggressive. We don't want to overpay the price. We assume people don't have what it takes to buy what we need, what can ultimately give them a solution. And I guide them to a place of brave because it's their journey. I know in mine, people have given me tools. This was an amazing tool. I have never heard this. Don't you look at me like that. It was awesome. I have never heard you speak. I put my faith in you, and you delivered. So we're going to talk about brave today. And yeah, I did have it tattooed in my arm. It's because it needs to be a constant reminder for me, because when I guide people to brave, you better be damn sure I got to be on my game. And I'm human. I'll fumble, I'll fall. So what is bravery? Tell me, someone be brave and raise your hand. What's the definition of bravery for you? Yeah? Oh, yeah. What does John Wayne say? Something about you saddle up anyway. You're scared shitless, but you saddle up anyway. You do it anyway. That is what courage is. Courage and bravery is not without fear. You are born in love. You learn fear. Your parents taught you fear, your friends, your family, everything. They helped you mold who you are. And we're actually going to talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind in a way you're going to purely understand. And when you leave the room, you're going to know how to make shifts so you can reprogram those old beliefs, so you can step into your greatness. So if you're not, who's familiar with Brené Brown? Anybody here familiar with the author Brené Brown? So I'm a huge fan of Brené Brown, and I'm going to recommend a lot of books here. Write them down, please. Brené Brown wrote a book called The Gifts of Imperfection, and she is a shame researcher. You read her story, she is so vulnerable. She will point blank tell you in her story her F-ups, if you will, her mistakes, and she owns them. And that's where the breakthrough happens, when you own your mistakes, right? So this is her definition of bravery. Sharing stories of imperfection and vulnerability, which means loving and accepting who you are. Huge issue for all of us. Loving and accepting who we are. Who here 100% fully loves and accepts who they are? That's the truth. And here's something that's profound. The truth will always prevail, even if it hurts other people. I have triggered people something fierce by telling them the truth. And I've been triggered, because I'm human, by hearing the truth. Asking for help. Asking for help is the single most thing I think that most people, at least in my camp, the women I work with, they're afraid to ask for help. They're afraid to reach out. They feel overwhelmed. I should be able to do this myself. I'm a big girl. I can do this myself. Because asking for help denotes what? That we are weak. We're not good enough. We can't do this. And then the risk of being vulnerable or disappointed. Mel, did you feel this at all? Were you concerned that you would disappoint anybody or not do this right when you were up here? Did he not catch you on fire, though? Because what happened? Yeah. Because what happened is his energy and his faith, I could see him. If that fear was shaking, look how he turned that around. That's what you get to do when you make the choice to take risks and be brave. So let's talk about this. I want to go back to number one, sharing stories of imperfection. Is anyone familiar with, and I know there's men in here, and I'm glad. Is anyone familiar with CNY Woman magazine? Has anyone seen this issue? It was a few years ago. It's April of 2012. You know who that woman is on the front? That's me. You see the big word underneath it in black letters? That's my truth. Before this hit the stands, I was in bed practically throwing up. What have I done? Why did I put this story out there? What kind of nut job am I? It was just before my book was released. And what I was, and if you buy my book is out front, I wrote the book to help people through fear, because what I did is I left that job. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was making $37,000 a year. I was in news for 10 years. That's what I was making. I left that job, took a $5,000 retirement, and launched my business. Was I scared? Yes! I was very afraid. But this scared the hell out of me because the truth is in here. And it's funny the way they started it. They took the name of my business, Joleene Speaks, and they talked about how if you saw me, and I don't know if you remember me on news, it doesn't matter, but anyone who shows up on TV is like, we have a mask on. So people saw my mask. And so when they heard truth, I was blown away by the number of people that reached out to me to say, thank you. Thank you for being so real and so vulnerable. So that was my vulnerability, and that was really the biggest lesson that I had in it thus far. It's never ending. It happens to me all the time. It happened to me 3 days ago. I got blown away by something. I don't know if it'll open up while I'm talking. I tend to follow the room, the needs of it, and move into the story. But it's okay to be vulnerable because here's the thing that we forget. You have two sides. You have two sides. You have a mask and a shadow, and you have a mask and a shadow. And that's why we're all one. We're all the same. So if I can show you that I've messed up, that I have pain, that I struggle, then it will allow you to accept that you do too, and it's a freedom release like you wouldn't believe. So now that we know what it is, how do we get there? Seriously, Joleene, move it along, right? There's a couple different ways. And I want you to understand that no matter what way or process you decide to use to shift things in your life, it's a journey and it takes time. Which means if you start to incorporate something and you don't see immediate results, do you give up? Please don't. It took me a long time to get to the place where I am mentally, where I'm comfortable with myself. I told you I'm 42. My struggle began at 12. That's a long time, but that's okay because that was meant to be my journey. Does anybody know what the terror barrier is? I know a couple of you do. So I'm going to explain this concept to you, and this is going to explain to you an awful lot regarding your thinking and why you think the way you do. First of all, I don't own this concept. This concept is taught by Bob Proctor, if you're familiar with Bob Proctor, and he doesn't own it either. It was taught to him by Dr. Non-Khan or something, and I forget his name. It doesn't matter. He was taught it in the 60s. I can't see my notes here anymore. So basically what you're looking at is not a half-moon cookie, although I wish it was because when I was pregnant, that's what I craved. That's your brain. And the bottom S right there is your subconscious mind. The C is your conscious mind. And the line in between is your terror barrier, and I'm going to explain to you what all this means and how it functions. Basically, your subconscious mind is 95% responsible for influence, which means you run your lives right now from your subconscious mind. You're like a robot. You don't think. You get up, you take the shower, you pour the cup of coffee, you get in the car, you come here. Because those are things you learned all your life and when you were young. And here's what a lot of us don't realize. Between the ages of 0 and 7 is when the majority of information and where we function from, that information is downloaded. And the reason that we are so impressionable between the ages of 0 and 7 is because our brain is functioning at a theta state. T-H-E-T-A. The brain waves move slower. So you're kind of in this hypnotic state. So when you are taught something or said something or learned something, it becomes a part of who you are. Has anyone ever heard that story? And I don't know why this comes to mind. I remember seeing it probably on National Geographic about a gentleman, it sounds bizarre, who was brought up in a chicken coop. It's bizarre. But a family left a young boy on a farm, and this is in a different country, it's not in our country, and allowed this child to live like an animal. And he literally walked like this. He thought he was a chicken. And the reason I share this story with you is because he adapted to his environment. And then when he learned that he could be removed from the environment and that the environment didn't define who he was, he shifted. And that's key, and I want you to remember that. So 95% of what you do, majority of it was downloaded between the ages of 0 and 7, but you still continue to learn. The difference is your brain waves are moving differently, but from 7 until now, it takes repetition for you to pick up a habit. When did I start smoking cigarettes? 12? 13? Oh, I was naughty. Yeah, I don't smoke them anymore. There's nothing that goes in my body anymore like that. But I had to practice that to get good at it. Think about you learned to walk before you were 1 or around 1. You were potty trained between 0 and, well, I don't know anybody that was potty trained at 0, but in the very tender years, and so that's just what you know how to do. Imagine if someone told you that you had to learn to not go to the bathroom. So those are things that you learn very, very young, and 95% of your mind functions with those learnings. Here's the scary part. American Psychology published a study that says 70% of what you learned was negative. It was negative. You learned anger, you learned prejudice, you learned hate, you learned love. And don't get me wrong, everybody in your life did the best they could, but that's what they learned, and so on. 70%. So here's what happens. Those little red X's are the thoughts and the programs that you learned. And I have a little pointer here. Oh, look at that. So these are thoughts like, I suck, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm fat, I don't deserve this, there's no way I can start a business, there's no way I can be a speaker. This is insane. Because those were all things that you learned in your life, and therefore you believe them. Now, say someone comes along and they introduce a new concept or a new idea to you. So I'll use my work for example. When I'm working with a business owner, the new concept I introduce to them is, I can up-level your business. I can teach you how to be brave and run a successful business that's a 6-figure business. And they get excited because they know there's possibility there. But then what happens is, that thought, there it is right there in the conscious mind, a new thought, that's our creative mind where wishes and desires reside, so we get excited about it. Oh my God, this is going to be great. But that conscious mind is only responsible for 5% of influence. Because again, 95% is your subconscious mind. Where does that new thought have to go in order for it to be anchored and for you to execute it? Does anybody know? It has to go into your subconscious mind. What's going to happen, do you think, when that new thought of change goes down in here? Hopefully, most of the time, my love, it gets the crap kicked out of it by your negative thoughts. You can't do that. Are you insane? You want to start a business? What, you want to be a speaker? Are you kidding me? You want to quit your job? You want to leave your husband? Are you nuts? That's what happens. So that's the terror barriers when that new thought wants to go down to the subconscious. And it's triggered by a circumstance, which I just gave you a ton of examples. So an example for me, when I left my job in news, that was the circumstance. And I got all excited about this concept. I'm like, I'm going to be a speaker. I'm going to change the world. I had no idea how to do it. I just knew I wanted to. And if you follow somebody like Bob Proctor, he will say over and over again, you don't have to know the way. You just have to know that you're going, and the rest will open. I promise you. Do you know why I do what I do? Because I've experienced it. That's what makes me able to stand up here and deliver nothing but truth. And sometimes that truth will trigger people and piss people off. But you know what happens? When that anger goes away, because it's our natural reaction to get angry, the truth surfaces and we see it as a gift. It becomes a gift. I've had people say things to me or criticize me, and I want to kick their butts. And 5 days later, I'm like, they're right. Can you relate? They're right. So the circumstance is what scares us. And then there's this little process that happens. The first thing that happens is we experience doubt, fear, and worry. I can't. You know what? I can't do this. This is ridiculous. There's no way in hell I can do this. The fear kicks in. Worry. I don't have the money for this. What happens if I leave? Who's going to take care of the kids? Who's going to take care of my mom if I don't? All of these things. Who's going to take care of these things? This area right here is where everybody stops. This is where 95% of the human population gives up. They stop. And then they move back into their comfort zone. And then they exist. And then you experience depression, anger, frustration. You try to suppress it. If you're anything like me, I tried to suppress it. Now that I've learned how to open it up and own it, I'm free. I'm experiencing that freedom. The next stage, and this, by the way, is where successful people, that's your definition. What is your definition of success? Success can simply be leaving that job and going to do something you love. or traveling the world or just breaking through an addiction. That can be success. It's not about money. So this is where successful people say, I will be damned if I let you stop me. And they decide, no matter what the fear is, they will push through anyway. And you know what the magic formula is? It's faith. Even if there's 51% faith and 49% doubt, go. Go. Have you failed yet? Really? When you look at the things behind you that you would consider failures, are you still standing? Are you still thinking about those things? Go. The second thing we do is we rationalize. We'll rationalize ourselves right out of the new thing. I've done this when I bought a car. I don't need a new car. I got one with 4 wheels. Well, 3. But I can just put my weight on one side and drive it. And the window won't go down over here, but if I pound it like this, it'll go down. I'd find every reason in the world to gift myself with something that I needed. So I would rationalize myself out of it. My coach calls this the stage where you talk rational lies. You tell yourself lies. And you do. Do you know some people would rather cut off their left arm than admit they're wrong? That's a big piece of my work. But I will show up in that space. And then blame. You'll blame outside sources. You'll blame other people. You'll blame the environment. I was born to be an alcoholic. I can't quit. You know? And people do that. They live in their victimization. It's the truth. And they may not see it. And so when I use the word ignorance today, I want to be very clear. I'm using it strictly by definition. We are ignorant simply because we haven't been taught. No one showed us the way. That's why I'm grateful for my coach, because he'll say, look, this is what's going on. You're experiencing projection. Does anyone know what projection is? I'm going to delve into that. If it triggers you, it's about you. So when someone says something that pisses you off, guess what? There's truth to it. Maybe not in that moment. One of my biggest triggers is when people, Facebook is so dangerous sometimes. People will post things about, and I want to be clear, I don't condone drinking and driving, but you're looking at a former alcoholic. So I know what it's like when you want to drink to just do it. And there's always these news stories coming up, and then in the news stories they'll talk about a mother who's been drinking or driving or doing heroin. They're everywhere, right? And people will just start to criticize the hell out of everyone. How dare they? What are they thinking? How can they not think of their kids? That triggers me. I don't condone it. But I know the pain of where they are, because that addict is in pain. And I know it because I existed there. And my goal in life is if I can help shift someone to a better space of love and acceptance, because we're all on a different journey and we're all in a different space, and I've done my work. And I don't know why I'm getting goosebumps just on the right side today. But when I think about it, it gives me goosebumps. And I'm grateful for people like you that have faith in me to show up in here to see what I have to say and meld to. The last stage, we go back to our old programming. So it's like, here's the new car, yay! Oh my God, I can't do that. This is absolutely ridiculous. You know what, I'm not going to be able to make these payments. I don't even think I can, my dad's going to kill me. You know what, I don't need this, because my car does have 3 wheels, and 3 wheels are okay. I can still get there. And you know what, it's Jack's fault anyway that one tire is missing, so screw it, I'm staying in my car. And then we wonder why we're stuck. And then we blame other people. It's your fault I can't have my dream. I can't leave my job. My husband will kill me. I'm married too. I'm grateful and very fortunate that I have an extremely supportive husband. Ask me what his face looked like the first time I said, I invested in a coach that was $20,000. Because he didn't think fairly that I could do it. And I proved him wrong. In a good way. And he started to see, like me, as I grow, the abilities we have are immeasurable. Immeasurable. I don't want to be on my deathbed personally thinking of the shit that I didn't do. I've always wanted to write a book. It's not a bestseller, but it's sitting out there. And it's changed lives because I've gotten the emails. That's enough for me. So if it creates a shift for you like that, it's enough. Here's the beauty. You get to determine the outcome of every single action in your life. Your job, your marriage, your family, your professional life, your weight, everything. And here's why. Now, I'm going to get a little sciencey on you, but if you follow Dr. Bruce Lipton, write his name down. He'll help you understand how your mind works. He makes it so easy. He really does, and he's so enjoyable to listen to. So this is part of his work, Dr. Bruce that I'm going to talk to you about. He is a biologist, and he talks about something called epigenetics. Anybody? Tammy, you rule. Epigenetics. So here's the concept that we own now. What we decide now in our culture is the circumstances that surround me and have shaped my life can't be changed. Oh, well, I'm a part of my environment. Now, I'm pretty sure Mel just shared a story when he stood up here that contradicted that, and here's why. One, it's not true. Why isn't it true? You are not a product of your environment. Have you ever heard stories where you can put two people in the same environment, one will thrive and one will not? Why do you think that is? Their mind. Have you ever heard a story of anybody who's been in Auschwitz and how they made it through? How did they get through? Their mind. Stories all the time of people that were able to heal themselves. I know the movie The Secret gets a lot of flack because it was really sensationalized, but understand the truth is you do attract like attracts like. Understand that that's the truth. We're all energy. So basically in that, if you ever wanted to hear more stories of people that were able to heal themselves, there's a few in that movie. They decided, oh no, you're not diagnosing me with that. I'm an alcoholic. My brother is an alcoholic. He's also reformed. My father is an alcoholic. He is not reformed. My grandfather was an alcoholic. He is not reformed. I'll be damned if I'm going to own that. I don't do. Here's the worst part. I hate saying it, but if you read the article and you read my book, and every time I say what I do, your eyes will shift my body up and down, so be prepared. Struggled with an eating disorder for 26 years. Don't move your eyes. There's a stigma attached to it. Not all people with eating disorders are super skinny, right? A lot of people don't know that. So that's a disease, by the way. It's a disease. It's an illness. It's a mental illness. I'm mentally ill, people. Thanks for coming to my room. I chose not to own that. It was a long journey. A long journey. It still is. But it's up here. I get to make the choices. I love ice cream. Go get that shake out front, the nutty, buddy peanut butter and chocolate and the whole thing. Own who you are. Own your darkness and your shadow because it's part of you and it's going to shape you. And you have every right to be who you are, good or bad. So the bottom line is my environment was, and I could go back, I actually kept diaries, and I didn't know this. I started writing in journals when I was 13. I mean, I knew that. But I didn't remember what I actually wrote into the journals. And I would actually write all of this stuff about food and different things my parents would say to me about my weight. I was built like I am. I think I'm okay. But I was taught, and it was put in my subconscious, that I was not good enough. And so I lived in that environment. Now, this is a little dark, and I apologize. These are your cells. Here's what happens. Between the environment and your cells is your mind. And the brain takes the interpretation of the environment, scary, bad, etc., and it goes into the blood cells and feeds the cells. Who here got goosebumps when this young man was up talking? He shifted your environment because you forgot for even 3 minutes that something that was plaguing you existed because he was on fire, and he fed you. And it went into your cells because your cells are your energy. They shift you. It's your body. So between the environment and those cells is your mind. So this is the catalyst that changes everything. That's what makes a difference. You don't have to own it. When you live in lack and poverty, guess what? You get the same opportunity as anybody else. Free will, baby. Go get it. I got a message on Facebook from a gentleman, more or less in so many words, that sent me a message. He is a Christian man. He actually goes to my church. And we get along great. Asked me to sing. I sing in the choir. Asked me to do a solo. There was a lot of scripture in between what he was saying, and I had to pull the scripture out to understand the message because he was everywhere. But essentially he was saying to me, Joleene, it's not fair that you live an abundant, wealthy life, and I have to struggle in my job, and so does my wife. And I think, Joleene, what you offer, you should give it away because that's God's will. It triggered me because I worked really hard for what I have. Nobody walked up to me and handed me what I have. Nobody. That's the gift I give to people because there's a way. And you have your own free will. It's in your mind. You want it, you go get it. So after I calmed the hell down, because I was triggered, It triggered the inept individual in me. I sent him a message back and basically said, God gave you free will. And you have a choice. And the choice I made was to live an abundant life in so many ways. Screw the money. The lessons alone, invaluable. Invaluable. But what it's taught me is that I can get as much of it as I want, and there's plenty for everybody. And I'm sad that he's stuck there. And I can only give him humility and love. The old me, that triggered me, would have said, F you, go get it yourself. If you want what I want, here's the bottom line, and here's the hard truth. If you want what I want, you have to do what I do. And it's true for any of you. If somebody wants what you want, they have to do what you do. Every single time. Is it easy? No. But it's worth it, and here's why. Either way, my friends, you're going to experience pain. Why not head the direction that has the party at the end? So let's talk about how you can change the programming. You guys ready for that? A little excitement would be good. Yeah! First of all, you can rewrite negative subconscious programming. You do have to make the choice, and that's really the first step, is to make the choice. I know a lot of people that struggle with weight. It's universal, so I can speak to that, and I know I can speak to a lot of people in this room. It's to release perfection. What? It's to release perfection. Yeah. It's really funny. When I was in college, I went to school for musical theater. I know that shocks you. And then I went to college for communications, for radio and television production. And I took a lot of dance classes, tap, ballet, and I sucked at it, but it was part of the curriculum. And the classes started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and everybody would walk into their class, and they're in their jogging pants. This still happens on campuses, right? Jogging pants, T-shirt, they've just brushed their teeth, pulled their hair back. Not Joleene. In the shower, full makeup, full hair. I had to be perfect. And I remember a friend of mine came into my suite. She's like, come on, Joleene, we're going to be late. And this is how angry I was. I have suppressed a lot of anger in my life. And not knowing how to unlock it or move it out, obviously I was a rage. It was a mess. She's like, Joleene, you don't need to do that. Why don't you just pull your back? I'm like, leave me alone. Go to class. I'll be here in a minute. And she was like, whoa, who are you? My shadow came out. So it's letting go of perfection and to love and accept who you are. Those are the ultimate acts of courage. Did you ever see someone that isn't magazine perfect, that really embraces who they are, and you just go, damn, I want that confidence. It just exudes from them. So let's talk about different ones. The first is hypnosis. And now, there's actually a hypnosis in the room. Can I call you out? Great. Stand up for a minute, just so you see where Linda is. Just in case, this is Linda, and she is a hypnotist, and I've had the opportunity to spend time with Linda. But when I talk about hypnosis, I want to make it clear, it doesn't mean necessarily actually going to see one, but there's an option. And here's what I want to talk to you about. Do you remember when I said between the ages of 0 and 7, your brain is operating at a lower frequency? It's a hypnotic state called theta. So that's pretty much what hypnotism does, is they bring your brain wave down so you can be in that hypnotic state, and they help reprogram you. So one of the ways that you can do this is you can actually, right before you fall asleep, does anyone listen to any kind of music or anything right before they fall asleep? Yeah. So just before you fall asleep, the brain is still operating at that theta state, the same level as those tender years, so the window of opportunity to reprogram wide open. Anyone familiar with Cheryl Richardson? She's kind of the celebrity life coach. She's part of the Louise Hay camp, if you know any of the Hay House authors. Just a great bunch of motivators and spiritual movers. Anyway, she had, and I don't remember correctly, but she needed to have a procedure done. And she asked the surgeon, before she had the procedure, she said, listen, I want to be able to go in with earbuds in my ears. Will you allow that? And here's what she did. She basically, thank you, I'm a mover. This is good. You gave me my space. I adore you. She basically recorded her own voice. Cheryl, you're going to make it through this. It's going to be okay. You are a lovely, beautiful, wonderful human being. Over and over again, and she looped it. 45 minutes looped it, 45 minutes looped it. They gave her permission. She went into the procedure. One of these organs, I forget. And she healed faster and shocked the doctors. It's the mind. Now, when I talked about epigenetics before, that's what epigenetics is. It's the science that now fully supports the fact that the placebo effect is real, because your mind determines and you get to shift it. So epigenetics basically proved by using varying cells that it's not your environment that determines where you are, what you choose. It's your mind that gets to shift it. So it's this kind of merging the spirituality with science. Here's the part that we miss. Because of the culture we live in and the corner of the world that we're in, this ancient wisdom has just been wiped out in our culture because we're programmed by instant gratification. You can have what you want when you want it. Oh, and by the way, you're not good enough. Oh, hey, you're too fat. Try this. Oh, there's this commercial on chicken fat, chicken fat. It shows, it's an app. They're using this song called Chicken Fat. I'm like, that's got to trigger an awful lot of people. And I just was really shocked by the marketing of that. You know, I really, really was. But anyway, yeah, thank you. So I love her. So what you can do is, this is why meditation, people will say it's okay to meditate just before you go to sleep if you listen to soothing music. Guided meditation is really cool because guided meditation is a sweet voice with music. And if you listen to it while you're asleep, it will start that reprogramming, but continue to do it. Remember, as you get older, it's not about theta as much as repetition. But when you're in this stage, take advantage of it. Or see someone like Linda Gilmore, who can guide you with genuine hypnosis and help you create a tape yourself for whatever it is you struggle with. The second is repetition. So practice doing something regularly. This is why affirmations work. Stand in the mirror and go, God, I am hot. Woo-wee! Sheer perfection here, baby. And it's hard sometimes. And people will say, I'm lying to myself. Well, yeah, because your subconscious has been programmed to say, I suck. You know, for me, at this point in my life, to say, you know what, I'm not so bad. I'll take me. 20 years ago, I was like brutalizing myself, just trying to be so perfect, to get everything right, you know. So practice doing something regular. This is why affirmations work. Find an affirmation that fits for you. I practice gratitude regularly, and it brings me to tears sometimes. And I'm glad I do it because I'm starting to see things that I didn't before, and I'm starting to appreciate people more from all walks of life, and I love it. We're just all so colorful with our personalities and our stories, everything. The third is energy psychology. Oh, this excites me. Anybody know what energy psychology is? Okay, tapping, not. The practice of tapping is a form of energy psychology, and I know Linda practices it. This is something I do. Actually, I do it every morning when I'm doing gratitude. It's an ancient form of acupuncture, kind of renowned. It's also called EFT, the emotional freedom technique. But by tapping on the meridians of your body while repeating something over and over again, it can shift those. Oh, that's the wrong spot. It can shift those thoughts. But the thing that really excites me, and I don't know enough about it, but I wanted to present it to you in case you wanted to learn while I'm learning, is something called super learning. And you can go to a website called psych-k.com. The name Bruce Lipton will pop up. It's not his work, but he supports it. But in a nutshell, super learning takes your right brain and your left brain by a series of questions and hand movements and realigns it. And the allegation is that you can change a program, something that you have believed in your life, a limiting belief, within 10 minutes. So I'm actually going to be taking a course in New York in August to learn how to do this, and I'm super psyched about it because I think it would really benefit the people that I work with. So just food for thought for you. So energy psychology. And tapping, too. Look up Nick Ortner, O-R-N-T-E-R, or Jessica, same last name, O-R-N-T-E-R. Did I spell that right? Thank you. O-R-T-N-E-R. Thank you. And Jessica, same last name, and she does tapping for weight loss. And it's actually pretty cool. I'll sit in a separate room in the morning because I've learned to take 10 minutes for myself in the morning before I start my day. And I'll tap, and I actually feel I get a buzz. So if you're looking to get a buzz on, because I've tapped the energy, and I can, I know, right? I'll do anything to do it. But it helps me shift my mindset, and it helps me reprogram those old beliefs. The fourth one is shock. I don't recommend it, but I told you a story about it when my mom died. It shocked me into quit smoking. It even shocked me into quit drinking. And she wasn't an alcoholic. I just realized they kind of go hand in hand. Many years ago, I used to work at the Applebee's right here on Erie Boulevard. I was a bartender. When they had one TV behind the bar. Can you imagine? And they still had, the glasses would hang above you, and you'd reach up and get the wine glass. I worked there for about 4 years. And there, I had my regular customers, and I had this couple that would come in, and their names were Lynn and Mark. And Mark was an angry guy. He was always bitching at her. They would come in, they'd get their rum and cokes, I still remember, short, with a lime. And then you could smoke. They would always be smoking. Sometimes they would eat. Most of the time they would fill up on alcohol. Lynn always looked very miserable, very unhappy. And at that time I didn't understand what I understood now to know the pain that she might have been in. And same with Mark. He was just a bastard. Criticize her, say things, badmouth people, be sharp with me with his voice. And then one day they stopped coming in. And one of the bartenders said to me, yeah, Mark had a heart attack. I'm like, no way. Yeah, Mark had a heart attack. And then a few weeks later, well, it must have been longer than that. It must have been 2 months later, 3 months later, they came back in again. And Mark looked different. His face looked different. He had lost a little bit of weight, but everything was the same. And the reason he was different is that shocked the shit out of him. It scared him. He realized, look how I'm living my life, and look what it's doing to me. And it shocked him into a shift. So the old programming that ran his life that caused him to live in fear and to act out and project it on other people changed instantly. And I had mentioned we would talk about projection, and I did a little bit. If it triggers you, it's about you. And I'm really learning how to own this and step back when something triggers me severely, because there's always a lesson in it, either for the person or for you. So if somebody says something that makes you angry, it's because it's true. On some level, there's truth to it. And so being very aware of projection can shift your life dramatically. So when someone does say something that frustrates you or angers you, pull back and say, what part of this is true? And when I discover it, what can I do to shift it? Because not everybody's nice, and here's what I've learned. Not everyone's going to like you. That was a tough one for me. Because I happen to be one of those people, everyone has to like me. Yeah, some head nodders, you too? Yeah, me too. Me too. I have time for a story, and I think it's pertinent. Part of the work that I do is I'll get on the phone or have a face-to-face conversation with someone that's looking to up-level their business. And one of the things, part of the conversation I'll have is having them take a good hard look at where they are and admit where the fault or the error is that they need to shift. And that's painful because it's the truth. So one of the things is when you're building a business, you have to decide if you either have a very expensive hobby or a business. Well, I shared this with someone that I actually know. She's a fellow entrepreneur. I've spent time with her. I've had lunch with her. I know her daughter. And it was just her, this woman and I on the phone when we had this conversation, and I wanted to help her. And some people just aren't ready for that step. They don't want to be helped because they still want to own the pieces that are keeping them stuck. And when I said to her, you have to really consider whether you have a very expensive hobby or a business, it triggered her something fierce. But I didn't know it until 4 days later, I got a message from her daughter. Not even a phone call, a Facebook message. Don't you ever talk to my mother like that again, you bully. She called me a bully. Ask me if that triggered me. And went on to tell me that I didn't know what I was doing. Did that trigger me? And all of these things, and it triggered me so bad I was shaking. I couldn't dial my phone to get on with my coach fast enough. What am I now? No. I had bully in me, sure. Yeah, I had a lot of, I used anger as manipulation. So that is what triggered me, is when they called me bully, that I remembered back to my 20s and my 30s when I would use that anger as manipulation. So yes, there was a piece of it that woke up. that it's about you. I used to feel that way too. I used to feel the same way. But the reality is that it is. So here's the thing: if it triggers you and you experience projection, doesn't mean it's happening right now. Like, I'm not a bully right now. But if it triggers us, it's because there's a piece of us, something within us. Because here's how you know if you're triggered and you know if it's projection. If someone delivers information, so if I say to you, you want to start a business, you only got so many clients, you're only making so much money, you have to determine whether you're running a business or you have a very expensive hobby. If you go, yeah, that's a great point, you're taking it in as information. It hasn't triggered you. But if it does trigger you, you know there's a sense of truth to it. And so it took me a long time too, my love. I would cut my arm off first. Why does she irritate you? Why? What irritates you about her? Yeah? Have you ever done that? No? Never? Mm-hmm. You don't have to do it. I'm not a bully to everybody every time. Just to a couple people. Why can't you accept her? That's horrible. So that's something. Are you ever irritating? Projection. You don't get to measure it, honey. I mean, that's the truth of it. And and it's the truth of it. When you leave here, I want you to process this or come and talk to me, but that's the truth of it. If it triggers you, it's about you. In some way, it's about you. It doesn't have to be on a big scale. How many people are triggered right now? It's triggering several people right now, just this conversation. So again, you don't get to measure it. There's no level. When I said earlier that I was triggered when people criticize those that use or are addicts, there's people that use to a level that I never could have imagined. I've never used heroin. I smoked pot and I drank. I can't measure that against somebody who's a cokehead. That's not fair. So it's something to think about, and that's really unfortunate because there are people out there that are not like us and we want to cast them out immediately. Embrace her then. Embrace her. Shift your perception. Process that irritation and love her through it. She deserves that because I'll tell you something. That's something she wants. Give it to her then. Rise above. Give it to her because guess what? Are you needy? No? Not at all? Projection. Can everybody see that? And I was here. Good for you. Yeah, she is. She's brave enough. She doesn't care. You know what I mean? No, not you, honey. Her. Yeah. She's brave enough to show it. Or she may have, here's something too. She may have a mental illness. And how unfair is it? So we're going to be irritated with her. So what I want you to do is really step back. Oh, crap, there was something we ran out of time. Come talk to me because I have a process for you. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. She has mental disease. So triggering is, yeah. When we see imperfection, that could be what it too. It triggers us. We experience projection and pause for a minute. Pause for a minute. Pause, because we'll talk. I just want to get through this so we can show other people, if that's cool with you, because I'd love to have conversation with you about it. So the shock is that experience, again, when we're literally shocked into stopping something or changing or making the shift. And I explained to you when my mom died. I quit smoking instantly. Mark having the heart attack changed his life dramatically. He chose to make the shift. The last one, and we won't have time to get into it, that's okay. Is anyone familiar with the work by Byron Katie? Oh, I love hearing all those yeses. The book was Loving What Is. And here's the beauty of the work, and my intention was to take a brave soul through it today, and it would have been great to do this, and I apologize, but I got to be out of here at 1. That leaves me 3 minutes. But what I want you to do if you're interested is there is, and this would be great work for you, and this is what I want to talk to you about. It's the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And this is projection/triggering/judgment. It all falls in the same realm, right? The bottom line is the purpose of this process is in a process of inquiry, it teaches you to identify and question the thoughts that cause anger, fear, depression, and addiction. And the first question we typically ask, if you look at the sheet, it'll take you through a process, is it true? So if you say, I don't project, I'll say, is that true? Is it true? Do you project? Yeah, okay, cool. And the next question is, how would you react? What happens when you believe that you may be possibly projecting? When you realize you're projecting, or you're getting angry at something for their behavior, what is your reaction? What is it typically? Is it frustration, uncertainty, unknowing? So the process, and again, I wish I could take someone through it because I'd love to guide you. Take a look at it and pull the sheet up. You can just Google the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. If you have a judgment against yourself, but more importantly, somebody else, be brave and do this work. Because what the work will do is allow... What's that, honey? So what you want to do is you want to take yourself through this process with that judgment. What is the judgment? She is fat. She is annoying. My husband doesn't listen to me. I can't do the things I want to do. And when you go through the process, you'll see when you turn it around really where it's coming from. And it comes from within. So the work is pretty crucial. So those are the 4 questions. So asking yourself, is it true? And then when you say, no, it's not true. It's absolutely not true. Ask again, is it absolutely true? Is that absolutely the truth? So these are the 4 questions. And I'm sorry we ran out of time. It's all good with me because I think we covered a lot of ground. If you have... Hang on 1 second, honey. I will. If you have any questions, please come visit me out there, and I'm happy to have conversation with you and with the work too. So those are the 4 questions. Yeah, come meet me out here because they're going to boot me out of the room. Thank you so much for your time. Have an awesome day. It was my pleasure. Thank you.